Hello, great ones. Welcome to the relaunching of my YouTube channel. I just completed season 1 during the whole pandemic of the Living Me Great podcast, and I am transferring all the episodes over to my YouTube so that my new YouTube audience gets a dose of what my content is about. Please like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy the show. Hello, great ones. Welcome to the Live and Be Great podcast. I'm your host, Latonya Sampson-McDonald. I am a life coach and a registered marriage and family therapist associate. And this podcast was created to motivate, educate, and inspire all to live and be great. On today's episode, I want to talk about victim blaming. I want to talk about the effects it has on today's society and how it is often used to discredit the victim and place responsibility on the victim, as well as oppress, dehumanize, and discriminate against human beings. Okay, so this is another podcast episode where I'm going to have to apologize, okay, if I'm all over the place because, man, the last couple of weeks have been rough and very triggering for me. Yes, I keep up with pop news as much as I can. I just do because even though I don't look at entertainers as leaders, I do know that entertainers have a heavy influence. Anybody that's popular, anybody that's in the spotlight has a heavy influence on how people are deciding to go about their lives, to justify their actions. It inspires people. I should say they inspire people, the industry. Yeah. Which they're people too, so we shouldn't hold them at such a high standard, but that's just the way the world works, right? I want to be realistic when having these conversations and not shame people for doing that because, we all grew up doing that. So it's okay if you don't, and I understand if you do. I just want people to be more careful and research, study, trust your own mind, trust your own heart. And it's okay to be wrong sometimes. It's okay to cancel people that no longer speak what you're speaking or follow models that you do follow. It's okay to forgive people and say, listen, I'm just going to look at you for entertainment purposes, and that's that. Okay. But, we cannot deny that they still have a heavy influence on a lot of people, especially our young people. So, man, okay, where do I want to start? Okay, let's just be honest. So, if you haven't heard, there's a rapper named Meg the Stallion, and she's been in the news for over a month now, possibly 2 months. She was shot by a rapper named Tory Lanez in her foot. And at first, when the story came out, people were trying to spin it because all you saw was the police footage from the helicopter of her getting out the car, and you can see the blood stains as she walked on the pavement after being pulled over by the police. And you see 2 other people in the videotape laid flat on the ground with their hands up after they're being pulled over. So at first, the story was spin that there was glass in her foot. So fast forward, because there were so many lies and people were just taking it to the extreme. Of course, in the beginning, she wasn't able to walk, and then she had to get surgery. And then after the surgery, she was seen out and about. So people at first We're like, okay, who shot her? So the best friend that was in the car, came out and said, I wasn't the one who shot her. And, even Meg came out and said, I was a victim of a crime against me, from somebody who intentionally tried to hurt me or harm me, is what she said. So, people were in the comments, and also there were a lot of social media platforms and, people coming out saying, well, what did she do? Right? Which you shouldn't. I don't know why people do that, but it's like it's a what did she do? What did this person do? And we're gonna dive more into that. But she got tired of people trying to spin the story the way that they wanted to, and we all know, like, there's a code with no snitching. There's a code with no snitching in various communities, right? There is. But very high in the Black community. But it doesn't necessarily apply to Megan, but because really, if you've done your research, or somebody that's involved in the street life or gang life or anything of that nature, just a little educational moment, it has to do with somebody who committed a crime with you. And if they snitch to the police, they're snitching to get less time when they get caught. So they throw you under the bus. And that's usually what it is. And a lot of people like to take it to the extreme, which is another social construct that is based off of white supremacy, when people like claim certain stereotypes and just place it on a group of people just because they're Black. When Black people do it to each other, or Hispanic people, Latino people, Latinx people, if they want to do it to each other, if you're a part of that culture, if police officers, they got the same code. If you haven't noticed, they do. And I think, and that's actually where it comes from, but we'll talk about that on a later episode. But if you're doing that, it's somebody who committed a crime with you. And she didn't commit a crime. She was a victim. So the whole snitching and things of that nature have nothing to do with her. And she had to realize that. And she just got tired of people trying to spin the story as if she was the aggressor and she deserved to get shot. And she came out and finally spoke her truth and said that she was trying to protect him because he was a Black man. And I apologize if you hear dogs barking in the background. But anyways, because she was a Black man, and people, they see in the media, we had marches during this time for Black Lives Matter. We know what's going on, okay? There's no need to go into further explanation about that, but she was trying to protect him, and she shouldn't have, okay? Shouldn't have, but she did, and that's a lot of Black women's instinct. And if you're aware, and if you're not Black, that might be your instinct too. If you have a Black friend or you have a Black partner, is to protect them. But if they're harming you, don't. That's just what it is, because they can end your life, right? Not saying that they may intend to. They may be enraged. They may have mental illness. They might really intend to do you harm in that moment. And then you need to protect yourself, okay? Regardless of who you are. So even after she came out and said her story, and it finally fessed up that it was Tory Lanez, people are still vilifying her when she is the victim. And it's so common in today's society. Even having conversations with co-workers, looking on the news, looking through comments, whenever a Black person, an unarmed Black person, people who are still may not intend to be racist, but still are coming from a position of privilege, some sort of privilege, whether it be race, educational status, whatever the case may be, people who still ask those questions, well, what did they do? It's very oppressive. And even when the videotape is right there, okay, people still want to ask, what did you do? Now, I'm not negating the fact that if you're a Black person and you want to make it out alive. We've been taught, we've been given the talk by our parents. Be polite to the police officer. Okay? Keep your hands in eye view and don't reach for anything. We've been taught that by our parents from a very, very young age. I think before some of us even started driving. Okay? That is what you're supposed to do. Along with many other rules that have been placed on oppressed people, particularly black people, that they had to do: go to school, stay out of trouble. The basics, we're told to do that. Yet people are ignoring the fact that we still don't get treated as equal. Even if we do follow all of America's rules, still don't get treated as equal. So people make us know or remind us that we're not equal by asking that question every single time. What did you do? As if my skin color is already the most offensive thing, the crime that is committed, right? And something that I cannot change, that I have no license over. My complexion, my race. Okay, I didn't have a say-so in it. And it's already viewed as a weapon. So, victim blaming. I really want people to understand what they're doing. And I want people on all scales, because you may see somebody that you identify with, and you may say, okay, I'm going to ride for them. I'm going to support them. I'm going to protest for them. But sometimes when you don't identify with this person, you may, if you don't truly understand what victim blaming is, you may continue to perpetuate the same oppressive attitude, discriminatory, dehumanizing action of victim blaming. So let's go into a little history lesson here. Reading the book Stamped from the Beginning, which is an awesome book about becoming an anti-racist and these racist ideas that we all subscribe to when we decide to stereotype other people and ourselves, even people that look like us. And if you want to get into the scientific part, race is not a real thing. It is used to characterize people, to put them in boxes, and to allow people to choose who gets the carrot, basically, and who doesn't. Who do we blame for something they can't change, or who do we discriminate against or put in the corner, all right, for being different? That's just what it is. So reading Stamped from the Beginning, it really gives you the educational background on racism, and from how slavery came about all the way to institutionalized slavery, which is the prison population, okay, the overcrowding, and the people that are targeted, which are black people, even though we only make up 13% of the population. We are the most incarcerated race. They talk about the curse of Ham. And the curse of Ham in the Bible states that basically black people are stamped by our skin complexion. And that's how you can tell who are the children of Ham. Basically, Ham did something bad, and his children are to be punished for it forever. So a lot of slave traders use that scripture to justify why slavery should exist. Okay? Like, these are people that deserve it because of this curse that Ham committed, and it's only right that they be slaves forever. Okay? And they use that. People use religion to justify just about anything. They take it, they twist it, and because people say it's in the Bible or it's in whatever good book that a religion has, it's to be done, and it is law. Okay? And it's often used to keep people in bondage. It is mentally, emotionally, and spiritually in bondage. And it definitely was used to keep slaves because they believed that, right? They were stripped of everything and were fed this rhetoric. And if it, our society, if everybody's doing it, it's very hard for someone to come up and shift gears and say, no, that is wrong. Even though people did, we had abolition and things of that nature. Okay. And then slavery was ended after the Civil War. But these oppressive attitudes and racist ideas still exist. So when I talk about the curse of Ham and Black people wearing this stamp, which is our complexion and our blood and our heritage, right? Or how you can tell who's the cursed ones and who is to be enslaved and who is to be oppressed, right? We are the victim. Black people are the victim of slavery. So using the curse of Ham, people justified that. And now you put the responsibility on those cursed, in quotation marks, people. Okay. And this is where a lot of this started. Even you can go even back to the history of Native Americans being slaughtered. There was some way to justify killing all of these people and taking their land, right? Victim blaming. That is what you do. That is what you repeat. Okay? That's what you keep strong in this cycle of oppression when you victim blame. So, when, goodness, when, like I said in the beginning, when an unarmed Black person gets shot, okay, you ask, what did they do? When a woman or male gets raped, what do they have on? All right. I got parents asking their children or telling their children, well, why were you being so fast? You know how your uncle is, or you know how your aunt is, or you know how this person is, and it's a continuous cycle. And I've explained in previous podcasts before, people do that. Often people blame the victim. A lot of times, if they don't identify with the victim, or if they identify more with the abuser, right? And they want to have compassion for the abuser, because having compassion for the abuser is them having compassion for themselves in some unconscious, weird sort of way, right? That's usually what it is. When you absolve the abuser, the murderer, okay, the rapist, when you absolve them of responsibility for their actions, you victim blame. Or should I say, when you victim blame, you absolve the abuser, the rapist, the murderer of their actions. You no longer hold them accountable, right? There's a post on Facebook, and let me see if I can look it up, but it got me hot. And there was going to be a different topic today, but man, given the recent events and my blood boiling, I'm just like, this topic is perfect for today. And I just want to teach people. I'm not trying to shame anybody, because we've all contributed that. I've even asked, well, what was she wearing? Or she shouldn't have been hanging around those older men. And so why did she leave her drink unattended? And man, why would he run from the police? They know they shoot first, ask questions later. Like, I've been taught to do that, right? So I get it. But we must learn, all right, to do better. And when you know better, you'll do better. And that's what I'm trying to do. And I'm coming from a space of understanding and empathy for people who just didn't know how they continue to contribute to the demise of other human beings. Okay. So, somebody posted, and I shared the post. It says, it's time to stop telling your underage daughter not to wear shorts when Uncle Randy is over and start telling Randy not to effing, 'cause I don't curse, come over anymore. And I completely agreed with that post because that is what parents do because they have normalized this behavior, and somebody normalizes that behavior. People think it's unheard of, but you'll be surprised how many families. I don't think I've met a family that doesn't have some sort of abuser in it. Okay, be it a molester, be it somebody that just likes to hit people, that's very angry, that's been incarcerated. I don't think I've met a family that doesn't have that in it, or I would say may have it in the history, but may not have it in the present history. It's just so normal and so easy, like down to, all right, my great 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 grandma got married at 12 to a 30-year-old. Like it was so normalized back then. So another thing is that if it's a normalized, so say Brandy is like great uncle to current child generation, right? Say that is the case. It's been normalized because possibly something happened to the mother or the father in that family. And when they went to go tell so and so, oh, well, you know not to wear those shorts, right? Now is what they got. They put the blame on the victim. And 9 times out of 10, if it's within the family, it goes back generations and generations, or cycle after cycle, that they normalize this behavior. Well, something happened to me and I'm good. I just know not to wear that around him, and you better not wear that around them, because they're giving their child that response because that's probably the response they got from their parent. That's just what it is. And people have this undying loyalty to family, and they shouldn't. All right? Uncle Randy should not be allowed over the house anymore. If he got an issue, you know, he shouldn't be allowed at the house. And I know maybe some people may be like, oh, okay, well, maybe the shorts are inappropriate. Maybe they're too short. The underage person or whatever the case may be. Listen, every parent has a right to deem what's appropriate for their child and what's inappropriate of my child. But listen, as a therapist who deals with victims every single day of abuse, some sort of abuse, okay, especially sexual abuse, that's the highest ranking one. You never want to say to your child, well, what did you have on? Well, what did you do? If they ever come to you saying this person touched me, they might even go that far to say this person touched me or this person looking at me weird. They might just say, oh, I really don't like, or they might, oh, where are we going? Is so-and-so going to be there? Oh, I don't want to go, right? That can be a direct indication that your child is uncomfortable and you need to listen to him or her. And never should you question the victim. Yes, I understand it. I understand people's need to have clarification of how I can make my child safe. Like the obvious, all right. Don't leave your drink unattended. We know the bigger fight is that people shouldn't be getting away with slipping stuff into females' drinks, right? We know the obvious, like I said earlier, be polite with the police, especially if you're a black person, okay? We know that's the obvious because of the world that we live in today, and we can't assume that people are going to always do the right thing, right? That's the obvious. But that doesn't mean that the jurisdiction that we do have power over, that we don't use it. So my home is my space, and I am to protect the home, not blame the home for being victimized. So that means that Uncle Randy can't come over if he has an issue. Check yourself. Always see my child as a child. Whether the knees, the not the knees, whether the short is above the knee, whether the shorts are below the knee, or if they have shorts on at all, or whatever the case may be, that does not give you the right to abuse my child. It does not give you the right to abuse me. Okay? You, as the adult, are accountable for your own actions. And that's what we need to do. I think I mentioned it earlier, but when we stay stuck on what somebody did or what the victim did, and particularly, we continue to perpetuate racism and discrimination. We just do. We do. Even if you call yourself, even if you call yourself, the do-gooder, I followed all the steps. I've followed all the rules. Even the unwritten rules, but we know they're rules. And they need to follow the rules too. You may say that, right? But when you bring it to the forefront, oftentimes that is what the abuser uses. Now, why does the abuser victim blame? Okay, the abuser obviously victim blames so that they don't look like the bad person, so that they, in return, look like the victim. Why? Because the victim gets sympathy. The victim gets absolved of any accountability. That's what happens, right? Now, you can do whatever you can, take whatever precautions, like if your home gets burglarized, you may want to purchase yourself a gun and get an alarm system, get some cameras so it doesn't happen again. If you have ever been sexually assaulted, you want to make sure you're watching your drinks at all times. You want to make sure you're traveling in packs. If you've experienced any type of abuse, with any sort of oppression, you want to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's in various aspects of life, as to try to keep yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally safe. I get that. But we should not allow that to be what we stay stuck on. Yes, if it happens again, okay, let's take these safety precautions. Or I shouldn't say happens again. If the incident happened, we want to take safety precautions to prevent it, or attempt to prevent it from happening again. You want to. But we shouldn't blame. People should be accountable for their actions. Being accountable doesn't always just mean, all right, you go to jail, or somebody kills you, or an eye for an eye. Doesn't always have to mean that. It doesn't. But there has to be some form of accountability with your mental health. As a therapist, I always say that I'm taught to have empathy for every one of my clients. And my mission is not necessarily to vilify somebody doing something wrong. It is to stop the behavior. And mentally is where all actions start. All decisions are made mentally. All right. So if I can get to your mental, then we can get to your healing. You can be educated. You will understand, hopefully, why you can't repeat this offense again. That's my job. That's not the victim's job at all. Now, I always say, when I talk about empathy, because I do teach my victims empathy, and I always say an abuser has been abused. Period. It's a learned behavior. It doesn't just pop, poof, in my head, I'm just going to do that. No. It's definitely a learned behavior. All behavior that is negative is a learned behavior. Behavior that is positive is also a learned behavior from the baby. You smile at the baby, once they see what you're doing and they can like their brain waves get to moving, they'll start smiling at you too. You cry, they cry. Right? You stop crying, they stop crying. Whatever the case may be, it's as simple as that. It's learned. It's human. It's human nature to soak up everything that's been given to you, and you decide what stays and what goes. All right? So that is not necessarily, it's not excusing. Empathy is not excusing the behavior, but a lot of, because we are in a society that victim blames, all right? From the smallest victim, a lot of people will blame them, and don't realize that they're doing it when you're asking all these questions. Well, what did you, instead of just protecting the child, okay, or the victim. It is to help the victim understand that it's not that they're not worthy of being safe. They are worthy of being safe. They are worthy of protection, and you did not deserve what happened to you. That person, give them all the blame for that. And that's that. Yeah, there are ways to protect yourself from being victimized, but no, you're not taking this one. This ain't on you, sweetheart. It's not. It's on the person who got up that day and decided that I'm going to take my pain and put it on to somebody else instead of dealing with it and handling it, because that's the easy way out for people. It's easier to oppress people. It's easier to discriminate against someone than it is to do the work and show respect and be accountable. It just is. That's the obvious. We live in a step on somebody to get to where you need to be society, and it's messed up. And I'm trying to do what I can do to change that. So I'm not trying to shame nobody. I might be using a little bit of guilt, but just a little tiny bit. But I do believe in redemption. I definitely do, but sometimes people go about it the wrong way. You do not get redemption in victim blaming. You just don't, by just taking it off you and putting it onto somebody else. You just don't. You may perfectly be empathetic with the abuser. You may say, man, I was almost close, or, I've heard stories of, I slipped something in a girl's drink at one point, or I got her drunk so I could sleep with her, but, I was just a dumb kid. Hey, listen, people make mistakes. That was really stupid that you did that. It was. And that doesn't mean that you can't change. That doesn't mean that you can't wake up and realize that was dumb and now do better. Right? But also, to do the work, it's not by just, okay, man, my son was being dumb like I was dumb back in the day. So, let me just have his back during this time because I used to be a kid. No, it doesn't stop there. It's like, let's heal. What made you make the decision to do that? Let's have that conversation in the first place. No, this is wrong. And I need to make sure this never happens again. So I need to look within myself so I don't excuse this behavior, and have my son or my daughter or whoever the abuser is look within, and let's see where this thing started, and let's get some healing. Because it absolutely cannot stop there. It's okay to be empathetic with people. It is. To see, okay, well, maybe they were abused at one point, or, maybe they were pressured to do that. Because, yes, peer pressure does play a role in a lot of premature violence, and a lot of, teenage substance abuse, all different types of things. Peer pressure, right? You got peer pressure. Adults go through peer pressure too, especially in high power places. Yes. It still happens. It does. But I'm sorry, the dogs are partying right now. I apologize, you guys. Uh, they're supposed to be in the house, but I cannot wait till after they go to sleep to do this podcast. So, but anyways, you don't stop. You don't stop there. Okay? You just don't. And that's why people do that. If anybody is trying to figure out, okay, why do these cycles continue? It's usually what it is. Having compassion for that abuser when you have been an abuser or you are an abuser. Some people look for their redemption in that way by trying to convince people to victim blame, unconsciously. But ask these questions. Well, what were you doing? And what were you wearing? And you shouldn't have left your drink there, or whatever the case may be. That's what they do. I think I touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but it's not just about the abuser victim blaming or somebody who identifies with the abuser victim blaming. There is also a relationship for people to want to keep somebody they held in high regard, in that space. I talked about looking the part instead of actually being the part on the last episode, and the trauma that comes about when your faves or people you look up to fall from grace. It happens. We all, as human beings, we look for inspiration. We look for how to do life through other people, and that's perfectly fine. A lot of times, it takes a minute for us to develop our own way of life, our own way of doing things, and it does start with that influence of people that we feel are safe. So, man, the world often, and I need to talk about this on a whole different episode, the world often teaches us to long for the male gaze. And of course, it starts with whoever's on top, which is cisgendered white men, heterosexual white men, I should say. That is on the top of the food chain. Okay? They teach you to want to attain greatness, to not just attain greatness, but if you don't look like that, if you don't fit the description, I want to at least rub elbows with you. I want to at least sit next to you. I hope I'm not confusing you guys, but that's usually what drives this. Oh, I don't want to believe that about this person that I hold in such high regard. That usually drives it, as if this person isn't human, as if this person is above you, or maybe you're not human. Maybe you're less than. Maybe you feel like you're less than. Maybe you feel like, especially black people are used to collecting scraps, because this system, and we're in an election year, okay? The system, honestly, was not created for black people. It just wasn't. It was it was definitely formed to support and continue these oppressive natures that America has, to put somebody on top and keep people who don't look like the founding fathers of America, which that is debatable, the founding fathers of America, on the bottom, and to keep them winning. All right, to keep the top of the food chain, everybody who was at the top of the food chain, to have them stay there. So it wasn't created for black people. And honestly, the whole system, the laws, the whole government needs to be dismantled, needs to be redone with black people, with LGBTQ people, with others, other people besides white cisgendered males, heterosexual cisgendered males. That's a lot in one sentence. Sorry, guys. On top. It just is. That's the way the world is built, unfortunately. So, with that in mind, if you've been taught that this is all you're worth, and that happens with all abuse, actually. right? You've seen in any race, the mother may be a single mom and she starts dating, and now you got a new stepdaddy, and the mother's child may not like the stepdaddy for some reason, or the stepmom, because women abuse too. May not like the step parent, and one child, if they feel safe, because not all children feel safe, but if they feel safe enough to say, okay, well, this person is touching me, yeah, sometimes their response is, well, what did you do? You being fast, or you're being hot, or, well, why would you? No, you're lying, because that mother or that father wants to stay with that person, and there is a resentment there, because a lot of times you hear that that mother or that father was abused, and they got the same response from their parent or whoever they told. They just did. And there's the response, that resentment, it shows up if you haven't worked through it, if you haven't healed from it. It shows up, and you will now find yourself denying your child just to keep that person around. It happened to Ellen, I think, DeGeneres, with her mother and her stepdad that she was abused by when she was a teenager. And the mother went on to marry the guy, and I can't, I have to research the story again, but I can't remember if she told the mother when she was 14 or she came out years later and told the mother. I can't remember, but at some point the mother dismissed the story and stayed with the father, well, the stepfather. you know um it's man, the worst. Most people are abused by people that they know. Okay, a lot of the times any form of abuse, assault, rape, victimization, it's by somebody that they know. And a lot of times you want to protect that person. A lot of times, there's shame there. The victim often already feels shame, so they don't speak up. They already know, well, you know, I'm not going to be believed. Or the abuser may say, I'll kill you and your whole family if you say anything. It's confusing, especially depending on when it happens, how often it happens. I've had victims that fell in love with their abuser. It was confusing because they had been, abusing them for so many years that they normalized it. And they're just like, I guess I deserve it. I guess this is love. So you accept less when a lot of times when you have been constantly abused, you either, strive for something better. You get to that place of healing to where you believe that you deserve something better, or you sometimes believe what that abuser has told you, which as this is as good as it's going to get and you're worth nothing. Right? That's the power of the mind. That's the power of influence people have. And that's how it affects people psychologically in different ways. It just does. So when you unconsciously ask the questions to your child that you have been asked, and you don't really think about that, you don't really go to the place of, man, what it felt like for them not to protect me after I told, or what did it feel like for me not to feel safe enough to tell somebody that I've been hurt and I've been harmed, or what can I survive without this person? It's been so long, since I found someone that would accept me for me. There's a reason why they're accepting you for you, because abusers know who to victimize. They do. They do. They always pick the right one. They do. They prey off of your vulnerability. They just do. And a lot of times, like I said, all abusers have been abused. You're their people. So you can either become an abuser, you can excuse an abuser, or you can protect the victim. And you start by protecting yourself. When you figure out how to protect yourself, when you figure out how to hold that abuser accountable, right? Then you can break the cycle. then you'll have enough power to, if it even comes close to having your child, you know what to do. Happening to your child, you know what to do. You know how to protect them. You know how to move. And you won't dare victim blame them. Yep, I think I found yet another topic I can go on and on about, mainly because of my experience as a black woman, and often being expected to be indestructible, unbreakable, you know, um, the one that can carry the world on their shoulders. And often people forget that I'm human. So, you know, when I mentioned the curse of Ham and I talked about slavery, again, my blackness is something that I cannot change. I just, sorry. And it's not that I want to change it either, but it's something that I cannot change. And that is traumatic in itself when I'm constantly reminded that I'm black every time I step out the door, every time I turn on the news, every time I'm discriminated against, anytime there's hate speech, anytime that I'm told I'm too much, or I talk a certain way, or my hair is a certain way, or my features are too pronounced, my skin is too dark, whatever it is. This world constantly reminds you who you are. And that could be a good thing for some people. That could be a bad thing. That could be an in the middle thing. But we still have to deal with it. And it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But I want to work to correct that. I want to educate people. I want to push people forward by making things relatable. By people asking themselves the hard questions and giving themselves permission to do the healing to affect the change that we need in this world. That's what I want to do. Because it's number one, not just with black people, you got people in cages, children in cages with their families right now, human beings in cages because they're immigrants. But there's a part of the world, there are people in the world that think they deserve to be there because they so-called came over here illegally, which shouldn't be a thing. You got the Holocaust. Judging by your nose, you look like I need to put you in this concentration camp. Just oppressive, after 9/11. Oh, you got your hijab on, you got your wraps and your garb and your Muslim garb and you're in the mosque. Let me remind you who you are and how you don't belong here. Because you're different. Because I have proof that you originated from someplace else. Let me show you that you don't belong here, coming from a system that stole, raped, and killed. That's who's in charge. So, it's not surprising, to say the least, that victim blaming exists. Because that is what, honestly, I don't want to, simplify it that much, but a lot of these social constructs, these oppressive ideas, these discriminatory actions, basis off victim blaming. Because you look this way, because you're different, I'm going to treat you badly based off of something you had no control over, which is how you look and where you come from. That's the essence of victim blaming. So that's what we do. Okay? Again, like I said, nothing wrong with, protecting yourself, making sure you guard yourself, you equip yourself to stay safe and not assume that people are going to do the right thing. But when the incident happens, when the abuse occurs, don't victim blame. Okay? Don't ask them 1,000,001 questions unless these are questions to find the abuser and hold the abuser accountable for their actions. Yes, we do need to make sense of things, But the first thing that comes out of your mouth should never be, what did you do to deserve this? Don't do that. And if you're doing that, please, please take a look at your trauma. Understand that it was not your fault, regardless of whoever told you that it was, and get some healing for that pain. Thank you all for listening. I'm going to be continuing the conversation. If you see me, you see me. If you want to reach out to me at liveandbegreat.com or DM me at liveandbegreat on Instagram, please feel free. If there's any topics that you want to talk to me about, or you want me to talk about, I should say, shoot them to me. But this is definitely on my heart. I try my hardest to be honest and be transparent. And that is the main reason why I relate things back to my own experience with not only my own trauma, but a lot of the clients' trauma that I aid and guide and support every single day of my life. Dedicated to that. And remember, it's education. It's the gateway to healing. Because when you know better, you do better. So, again, give yourself permission to not just live, but to be great based on your own actions, your own ideas, but definitely from a healed space, because you deserve it. I hope I didn't confuse you guys. If I did, I apologize. But you can tell me about it. I need you guys to follow me on social media at Live and Be Great. Okay? I need you to email me if you have any topics or, that you want me to discuss, or if you just want to reach out and, give me some support. You can email me at liveandbegreat.com. If you're looking for a life coach, go to liveandbegreat.com. I am accepting new clients. And if you just want to support this podcast, of course, the message will run itself in the end. But yeah, that information is in the outro of this show. I definitely hope that I have inspired you. I have motivated you, and I have educated you today. I really do, because I want people to flourish. And I believe that with more empathy creates more happiness and more understanding for people, and a better world for us all to live in if people just did the work on themselves. People saw themselves worthy enough to do the work and to have help without stepping on somebody else. Like, see a therapist, see a life coach. If you truly care about somebody, don't let them fall. Tell them the truth. Have them see somebody, right? With all the celebrities that have fallen, is a reason why they're falling. You take that as a sign that you don't have to hold them as God. They don't have to be the end all be all to success, right? Success comes from within, and it's based on who you are as a person, not on what you have. So, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next time on Live and Be Great. Give yourself permission to actually be the part and not just look the part. The Live and Be Great podcast will be airing every other Friday. If you have truly enjoyed this podcast, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving Live and Be Great a chance. Please feel free to share, like, give a review, subscribe on whichever platform that you're listening to right now, on iTunes or Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, as well as Google Play. The Live and Be Great podcast is strictly crowdfunded, so if you are interested in becoming a supporter, you can click the link in the description, or you can go to liveandbegreat.com and scroll to the bottom and donate to the Live and Be Great podcast today so I can continue to give you good and motivational content. Thank you all for listening, and don't forget to give yourself permission to live and be great. You made it to the end. Thank you so much for tuning into my YouTube channel, Live and Be Great. This channel will produce content that is both podcast and on-screen style. So if you're interested and you enjoyed today's show, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. See you soon.